Hello, we're here with Trae Crowder. Trae, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yeah, how's the tour going?
Tour's going good. It's kind of, it's sort of perpetual for me. It's been that way since the start. It's like not like as a comedian, it's kind of different than, like a band or musician or something where it's like they'll have a album come out or whatever, and then they go on that version of the tour and it lasts for, weeks or months at a time, and then they're like off tour. Some comedians do it like that if they're doing if they're on some kind of TV show or something like that, they'll do a big stretch of dates all at once and then be off the road the rest of the year. But a lot of comics, myself included, just like 3 weekends a month, I fly to whatever city. Like this in August, it'll be Indianapolis, Austin, and St. Louis. And then do shows there, come back on. Leave Thursday, come back Sunday type of thing. So that's been, pretty much my life for 9 years or so now, discounting the pandemic.
I can imagine you're jet lagged.
Yeah, I don't know. You get, you get used to it, to all the travel and stuff. Well, I say that. I mean, it still does. It still is exhausting. But.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was going to say, is there anything different nowadays considering the current administration in charge? Have you noticed any crowd differences on how they react, or have you had a couple of MAGA people storm your shows?
No, well, so yeah, because I was going to say the one thing you have to realize is that at my shows, it's almost entirely made up of people who bought a ticket to see me, which means usually they're fans or at least know who I am or whatever, which further means that they're on board with everything. So, but sometimes there will be, and I always marvel at how this happens because I could never imagine doing this myself. But sometimes I guess people are just like, let's just go see a comedy show. And then they buy tickets and don't even look up the name of the comedian on the show. Because that does happen. And then those people turn out to be, sometimes those people are pleasantly surprised and love it. But sometimes those people turn out to be, super MAGA-y type people and they don't have as good of a time. But they also see that they're outnumbered in there, whatever. Like the stuff that's pissing them off that I'm saying is landing for 95+% of the crowd. So they either just leave or just sit there and kind of stew in their upset, but that's about as bad as it gets for me. Knock on wood. I definitely don't want them more agitated showing up on purpose to cause problems or nothing like that. Right. But I feel inclined to say that my live show, my stand-up shows are, I don't know. I mean, I definitely touch on politics stuff for sure, but a whole bunch of it is not. It's about, cultural stuff or whatever. It's about I got a big, huge chunk right now about school, public school, because I went to public school and my sons go to public school, but I went to public school in rural Tennessee and they're in Southern California. And so there's elements of that are still culturally relevant because it's about woke schools comes up or how not woke my school is or whatever, but it shouldn't be offensive to literally anybody. I wouldn't think, so a lot of my stuff shouldn't bother those people, even if they do show up, but, it still does.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. But yeah, I want to discuss your book from 2016. I do have to say it was very educational, surprisingly, and very funny.
Well, look, first of all, I had to be completely honest that, we wrote that. That was one of the actually first things that happened for me after I went viral and got some notoriety in the first place was that book, which I always thought was wild because to me, I always felt like a book is the last thing or one of the last things. Do you know what I mean? You do a bunch of other stuff and then later you write a book.
You started with it, which is very unique.
Right. I know. I thought that was weird at the time, but yeah, so that was 2016. So I mean, that was 9 years ago. And so of course I remember what the idea was with the book and what like a lot of the chapters were about and stuff, but specifics that are in it, I mean, I'd have to go back and reread it myself, honestly. I know one thing that we've said before, and I think you're probably looking for more macro stuff, but I know there's some, in retrospect, regrettable things in there that are small, like as part of the like joke pieces. Like we had a part in there, a little side thing in there where we ranked like the greatest rednecks of all time or something.
Yeah.
And like Brett Favre is on that list, like pretty high up on that list. And like, and you know, we've said before, like, you know, publicly on our podcast that we would remove Brett Favre from that list. So like, there's
fair enough.
definitely been stuff, but like,
again, we're in Ohio, so and we grew up in a rural part of Ohio. It's a lot different than the South, right? But those rural areas are, you know, pretty red in Ohio, and we've seen that shift. So we definitely related to a lot of the things that you talked about, and plus, you know, a lot of the very intricate lines and jokes you put in there. Just hilarious, man. I mean, it's similar to your shows. Like I saw one of your shows back in, I think, November last year. And like, dude, we were laughing our asses off the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I mean, that actually is important to me because like I very much identify first and foremost as a comedian, and always have. And like, I know that in some people, I think, because of the nature of the things that I got known for, which are those like political rant videos and stuff, I think a lot of people often view me as more of a like a commentator or whatever you want to call it, and then are like surprised, usually pleasantly surprised. Like I get that a lot, like after shows from people who like me, they'll be like, I didn't know how this was going to be, but that was actually good. You're actually good at that, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know that this is like, I was doing that. I was doing stand-up for 6 years before I ever made one of those videos or whatever. And those videos were just like another thing that I was trying, you know, when you're like an up and coming, like creative person or whatever of any kind, you try a bunch of different shit. And that was like, just an idea I had. It was based on a stand-up bit that I was doing at the time, and it was like I could make an online video series out of this, and then I tried it, and then that became the thing that took off and that I became known for and defined by or whatever. But that wasn't like planned. All the politics, everything of it is like genuine, and the redneck part. I mean, I'm from one of the most like rural, economically devastated and rednecky parts of Tennessee in the deep South. But like,
yeah.
So it's all very authentic, but like I said, it's just like at one piece of my sort of comedic point of view or perspective or whatever. But it just became like the main thing once I got known by people for doing that specifically. So
the way you blend your comedy and Southern politics is pretty rare. You have this very unique persona about you, and when we first heard about you back, you know, again, we're 24, so well, I'm 24, you're 22. Yeah. So back in high school, that's when we started to see your stuff, and considering we're from a very small town in Ohio, we were like, God, who's this guy? Because you just never hear that, like, you never hear the accent talking about liberal politics or progressivism in general. So, and I feel like that's why you stand out online, and how you've grown so much over the years.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it definitely is. I mean, that's like, again, I like with the accent, like I still sometimes, like even fans of mine sometimes think to this day, even though I've talked about this a ton and how much it annoys me, they still think to this day that like, that I'm faking it or whatever, like the accent, like, you don't have to keep it up all the time or whatever. And it's a point of annoyance for me that I can't, like, I can do other accents pretty well if I practice them, like a Scottish or Irish or English or whatever, any of those types of Russian and all kinds of stuff, like just for fun. but I can't. What I can't do is just like erase this accent. Like I can't just do like a flat, like your accent or like an Iowa accent or something. Just like a regular flat middle American accent, like standard American accent. Like I sincerely can't do that, and it annoys me that I can't do that. But at the same time, like. So I'm saying it's not any choice that I've made or anything like that, but I still acknowledge like the accent is like a huge part of it. Like if I didn't sound like this, I probably wouldn't have gotten noticed in the first place.
Makes sense.
I guess that leads us into the next point. Obviously, you talk about how first and foremost, like you're a comedian. But at the same time, I want to turn this back to politics just a little bit. It seems like in red states, particularly in the South, there's been a decrease of, I guess you could say, progressive or liberal politicians in those areas. I know I did a little bit of research, and it seems like there used to be Democratic senators in states like Louisiana, Arkansas, and even like in other red states outside the South, such as North Dakota and South Dakota. Do you think comedy has, I guess, any place in rebuilding the presence of politicians in those regions?
I don't know. Everything that I've ever thought about all of that, about like the nature of Southern politics and the future of it and everything, and then also specifically as it relates to like the role of comedy in it and every single bit of that has been basically turned upside down for me in the past, few years. And what I mean by that is like, as far as the politics go, like I used to genuinely believe with all of my heart that like, not just the South and not just rural America, but the country in general, that on a like macro enough scale, on a large enough timeline that we only move in one direction, which is forward, right? That like it's a gradual, painful evolution, but it continues. Like there's no regressing. Society doesn't regress. Like, and I was like the South, even in my lifetime, and like in my hometown, from the time I was born and was a kid to the time that I graduated there, or left and went to college and everything. So in my 20s, like even in that amount of time, the amount that my town had changed, let alone from when like my dad was a teenager to then, like was crazy in terms of like, I mean, everything, just like whatever, overt racism or homophobia or whatever you want to call it. It just wasn't, it was like it had gotten much better. There was still a lot of problems with, like, it was still behind the rest of the country, but it had improved a lot. And I was like, that will continue. And that will continue with the South at large. And as like you said, there were Southern Democratic politicians who were like known and stuff, and that was the thing. And I thought that would, I thought that would all continue for a long time. And then the post-Trump era, it's one of the things that's really, shaken up for me, because like for the first time in my life, like I started to question that and then get increasingly skeptical of it. That I did it like, oh no, regression is possible. Like I thought that it wasn't, I guess very naively now in retrospect, because I thought that also applied to just all of mankind over a long, you know what I mean? Like we used to just be, throwing cabbages at bread thieves in the stocks in the middle of the streets and stuff like that. And like, burning women on sticks for liking numbers and stuff. Like, fuck, we've gotten a lot, like, across the board, we've progressed. So I really thought like that's just how it works. And now for the first time, I've been like, I'm not so sure about that. And I'm worried that that won't be the case. So that's the politics part. So like, I'm very worried about the future of progressive or leftist politics, period. But especially in like the South, because it just seems like it's eroded further and further. Now, I guess the other thing I'll say is that I would like to think there has to be some kind of breaking point for people in my hometown in terms of like, how much shit they'll take from Republicans or from the church. You know what I mean? Like, meaning like their lives are getting worse and worse all the time as a direct result of things that those politicians are doing. And all I can tell myself is that maybe eventually they'll, you know, screw them over enough that it might start to matter. But I'm not saying that I am confident that will happen. I'm saying that's really all I have to grasp onto. Then on the comedy side of it, sort of separate but related to all that, it for years, forever, pretty much, before I even, just as a comedy nerd growing up and a fan, and the whole time I was a comedian up until very recently, it was like taken for granted that pretty much every comedian was at least left-ish. Like, you know, like it was very rare. You know, there plenty of them were totally apolitical, but they were like, you know, they challenged things, authority and religion and shit like that. You know, like the big, like loud voices, like you know, George Carlin and Bill Hicks and guys like that, and like, you know, Chris Rock and all his commentary about race and stuff, and early Dave Chappelle with the same thing. Like it was all, none of that was at all conservative coded, like ever. And then you get in the, like, and the question used to be, as a comedian, like when I first started even, or when I first got noticed doing interviews and stuff, like people would ask, like it was like a stock question. It's like, is there such a thing as a, you know, like a good conservative comedian? Like, are there any conservative comedians out there? Like, it seems like not, because at the time
I can't name one.
There really weren't. Like they're like Nick DiPaolo was like the only guy I could ever come up with. Post 9/11, Dennis Miller, you know. But like you really had to search your brain to come up with any. And I never expected that to change ever. And then that's another thing that I just didn't see, because again, to me, it's almost inherent in being a comedian is the, like, you know, the propensity for questioning things and having a problem with authority and the status quo and that type of stuff is like the type of things you associate with being a comedian in the first place. And to me, that leads to, you know, progressivism and everything. So I never saw that coming. But that's another thing that obviously post Joe Rogan world and everything, like some of the biggest comedians, pretty much all of the biggest comedians out there right now are like right wing aligned, and I never saw that coming. So I would have told you years ago that, like, I don't think comedians have much to do with like the future of politics. I think that comedy is good because it helps people laugh at things that are otherwise might not be funny if someone doesn't make them funny, or it's, you know, it's like a de-stressor when it comes to coping with fucking things that you don't like about your country's politics and stuff like that. So that's all great. But as far as like being any kind of motivator for change, I don't know that I believe that. You know, like that's what I always used to say about comedy. But now it kind of seems like, at least on the other side or in the other direction, that it can have, like, from my perspective, devastating effects because, you know, I don't know. We can never know exactly how much of a factor it was, but it's a whole lot has been made of, like, the Rogansphere and the Manosphere and those guys and their impact on, like, young white male voters, especially, who, you know, broke hard for MAGA last time around. So it's like, I don't know, maybe it has it can have a lot of influence, but what's frustrating to me about that is, like, it seems like it only kind of works in one direction. I don't know why. Maybe it's that, no, I'm not going to say that. But yeah, so I don't know, man. Basically, and that was a very long answer, but
no, you're good.
Complicated question, and essentially, I don't know anymore about any of it. Everything I ever thought has been.
Well, that's what I mean. You know, with Stephen Colbert, for instance, considering you're a comedian, I know it's a little different for him since he's on a night show, but I feel like people like you could be next on the chopping block. It doesn't matter if you're liberal or progressive or wherever you stand. If you're even remotely into left-wing politics, I feel like in the next, like, year or two, it could be dangerous for voices like you.
Well, I don't, sometimes I tell myself, it's like, stop being alarmist. That's ridiculous. And also, and for me personally, another thing I tell myself is like, they got to get the long list before they reach you. So I should at least have some good,
Right.
at least have some good forewarning. But yeah, I mean, I've been joking about literally election night last November. I had tweeted that night. It was something like, well, I can promise you this. I'll keep running my mouth until they throw me in the gulag. Like, I've been joking about getting thrown in the gulag for a long time because, I mean, I definitely, it's something that seems like it could be in the realm of possibility. But,
Yeah.
but,
You're not wrong. That's the sad thing.
But even and that obviously is terrible. We get to the point where that is anything remotely resembling that is actually happening, then I mean, it's over. Like America has fallen. It's already happened. If that stuff is happening, it's like, that's it. It's past the end game. Like it's done and we lost. But but a different version. I mean, I can tell you right now from like behind the scenes a little bit. Now, this isn't exactly the same thing, but it's like ever since the election, like Hollywood in general, and the people that make decision makers and gatekeepers and stuff out here, they essentially, like a lot of people, I think, in whatever powerful positions in a lot of industries, they took the election result as essentially a referendum on any kind of like anything that could be perceived as, woke or whatever at all. Right. And it was like, and people, they're like, oh God, the whole people, this makes it clear. People don't want that. They don't want anything like that. That just pisses people off. And so like, you can't, I'm trying to pitch a TV show soon. And we've had so many conversations about how to couch it in a way that won't immediately freak these people out because they don't want anything to do. Nobody wants to do anything that's remotely like, subversive in any kind of progressive way or whatever, but they'll, I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars as Dave Chappelle made for his specials now or whatever. And it's like, and look,
Insane.
Dave Chappelle's one of the GOATs and he still has a lot of funny stuff in a lot of those specials, but he's got a lot of shit that is obviously, very explicitly, right aligned. And that doesn't bother them at all. But like, any kind of the left equivalent of that hasn't been grandfathered in, they're already right now for like money reasons or whatever. I don't know. They're just like afraid of it. At least that's the impression that I get. And that's kind of, I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I feel like that's sort of related to the thing we were saying earlier about the influence comedy has and stuff. It's like, it's kind of a double standard and it's sort of unfair in my opinion, because I think the reason for that is that like, yes, Dave Chappelle had some people protesting, at one special in particular, some like trans protesters and stuff, but it wasn't that much of a thing. And most of the rest of them have been largely fine. It's mostly online chatter or whatever. And it's, right. and other than that, like the left doesn't react to those things the same way that the right does. And by the way, like, I don't think that we should, meaning that like,
oh yeah.
Well, Taylor Sheridan, who I'm also a huge fan of, like starting with those first like Western trilogy of movies he wrote and everything. And then now he's got his whole empire, but that stuff is like, a lot of it is very papaw-y and it's very like, fucking white American men with money or the shit type thing. And it's like, and or pro cop and all sorts of stuff like that. And people on the left don't give a fuck about any of that. It's like just let the papaws have their shows. Like it doesn't bother the left generally that those things just also exist, on Paramount Plus or on Netflix or whatever. But the same is not true for people on the right. Like they can't just be pissed off by a thing and then ignore it. Like they don't want it to exist anywhere. Like they don't accept like, well, it's just not for you. It's for other people who like other things. They're like, no, fuck that. Everyone's supposed to like the exact same things I like. It should be illegal to like anything other than what I like. And it's like, and they're like kowtowing to that. The gatekeepers and stuff are like submitting to that from my perspective. And that's bullshit, dude. Now, the pendulum typically and always tends to swing back. And I think that it will. I think that already you're starting to see some like building online sort of backlash to,
Of course.
so like some of the Rogansphere things and those guys and stuff like that. Like there's entire YouTube channels dedicated to just shitting on them all the time.
Yeah.
They have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and stuff. So like, I think that people are all, I think it maybe hopefully is already starting to swing back the other way, and that could help. But, you know, who knows?
I guess you could say that I think there's enough of an appetite to for that people have regarding, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, liberal comedy. And, you know, like you mentioned the pendulum, and I do think that's a very real phenomenon. You saw some of that in 2016, and then after 2020, you definitely saw it like swing back.
Right.
And then I almost feel like, you know, even though it's swung back to the right now, it would not shock me in a couple of years at the next elections that you see a similar pattern occur. So I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think so. I've seen some people project that like now and whatever, because of the nature of how media works now and the news cycle and everything, that whole process has gotten like exacerbated so much that like in the future we'll just every 4 years we'll just fucking swing back and forth and like essentially in a way that it makes everything chaotic and, you know, untenable. But the thing again, as far as the double standards go, I'm sorry, but like it, I don't know. Obviously, I'm very biased, but to me, it feels like it's swinging back now because they're doing a bunch of crazy shit that people don't like. And after 2020, it swung back because Joe Biden was old and, you know, kind of doddering or whatever. Like a lot of like, you know, that fucking the infrastructure, whatever act, you know, and some of that, like some of the things that policies that actually got done and passed, and the economy was good the whole time and all that. And it just no credit for any of it. And it was like, he's a doddering old man. Disney made The Little Mermaid black. We got to go back to Trump. It's like, it's just not. It's the two things are not the same, you know, like, and that's part of what drives me crazy about it all. But yeah, I mean, still, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I mean, I hope that it does. I hope that you're right. And I think you probably are right. I think that's what people are projecting right now, that even by the midterms, of course, all that's assuming that we continue to have legitimate elections and everything. But
that's what I'm saying, man. That's in the back of my mind pretty much at least a few times per week
for sure.
Losing our midterm elections, because MAGA is really trying to change the whole thing. I mean, they're trying to, you know, do stuff with the voting machines. You know, it worries me with 2028 too, when it, you know, when it comes to the general election. You know what happened last time. So what's in store for us in 2028? I'm not trying to see another January 6th, and you know, these people will not concede.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on so many things. Like, I'm also legitimately worried about them trying to at least undermine, if not and completely remove the the electoral infrastructure as we know it. I'm definitely worried about that. There's been a lot of speculation that, you know, that a lot of these things, like the aggressive ICE policies and things like that, are maybe aimed at causing like bigger and worse riots than those that like happened in LA where I live a couple months ago. That like, that's part of which, by the way, just so everyone knows, that was like 2 blocks of the biggest, metropolitan area in the United States.
I figured
like, it was almost entirely business as usual here, but But they like want that because then, so eventually they can, you know, declare martial law or whatever. And then under martial law, you're like able to suspend elections and stuff. So I'm not counting any of that out necessarily. Like, I'm worried about all that too. Right. There's also the whole Trump trying to run again thing, you know, and whether or not that happens, or whether or not they attempt to make that happen. That feels to me like this, the way our government works. I would think that like if they legitimately are planning on doing that, you would think that those wheels would have to be put in motion like pretty soon. And I know that there was some dumbass congressman from my home state of Tennessee had proposed that bill already or whatever to make it possible, but I don't think that really went anywhere. But they, if they want that to look remotely legitimate at all, they need to take some big measures soon. So it's like, because I'm saying all that because if there are legitimate elections still, and if Trump just doesn't run again, he's, who knows? I mean, he is old, he is fat, he does look stressed out lately, whatever. Like,
yeah.
he legitimately may not even want to do that. Like, who knows? And so it's like,
so many avenues.
Right. So if the elections are legitimate, if Trump doesn't run at all, and it's my good buddy JD or whoever it is, I think that now who knows who the Democrat candidate is going to be or how the DNC will end up handling that. I'm sure there'll be some young upstart who wins the hearts of the nation and then gets fucking thrust aside in favor of Chuck Schumer or some shit. That's probably what they'll do. But so there's just so many variables. But like, as far as like another January 6th and them not conceding or whatever, I do think as of now that if it's a legitimate election and if Donald Trump specifically is not a part of it, I don't think that will happen again or that they'll respond the same way, because I really do think that a lot of that and this is the thing I tell myself to sleep at night, but that a lot of that is tied directly to, for whatever reason that I'll never be able to understand, Donald Trump himself. Like, I don't think that anyone else has shown up so far in right-wing politics who has that ability to command them the way that he does and get that same kind of cultish devotion and everything. He seems to be kind of one of one to me, and again in ways that I do not get, but it just seems to be the case. So but again, there's just so many variables about that. There's so many different things that could go wrong or right between now and then, so it's hard to say. But having said that, a couple of things that I'll say. First of all, I have a political podcast called Weekly Skews, and the guy that produces it, his name's Matt. Matt's day job is he runs a political organizing nonprofit that's focused entirely on rural politics, like the Democratic policies in rural America. He was actually he was the Harris campaign's rural coordinator or whatever. So, he had a real tough job. So he does that full time. So polling and analyzing data and all that type of shit, specifically focused on politics in rural America. And I know that he still has some hope, because one thing he finds a lot is that actually a lot of like progressive policies, in particular, the economically progressive policies, are actually very popular in rural America. It's just that people fucking don't associate them with, the Democratic Party or whatever. And they just associate the Democratic Party with drinking the blood of children or shit. So like,
or lizard people.
Yeah, right. And so it's like, there is a desire there for a lot of the actual policies themselves, and it's a messaging problem or a branding problem, it seems like, and I don't know how to fix that at all, because that has to do with all the propaganda and disinformation and shit in the world that we live in, and people live in their own bubbles and everything, and that's a huge problem that I don't know how you undo, but it's like there's like a possible avenue there. And the only other thing that I'll say, as far as I said, I've been more pessimistic than ever in recent years, but in recent weeks or months, talking about the Pendulum, I was at the end of May, like Memorial Day weekend, I was back home in Clay County, Tennessee, visiting family and stuff like that. And my uncle was there hanging out, and my gay uncle Tim, and he was telling me how, so for a few years up until like 2022, from like 2018 to 2022 or something like that, he was the co-chairman of the Clay County Democratic Party, right? And that was him, his co-chair, and two other people. All right, so 4 people total. Now, Clay County is incredibly rural and small, and it's like there's no traffic lights in my hometown or nothing. They just high school.
Yeah, you're
The
right.
high school. Yeah, the high school graduates like 35 to 40 kids a year or something like that. And it's the only high school in the whole county. Like it's small in the middle of nowhere. Still, 4 people was the entire Clay County Democratic Party. And by 2022, during the Biden administration, he said that like even those other 2 people like just weren't showing up. People just weren't showing up to meetings anymore. It was literally just him and his co-chair just, having coffee together and calling that a meeting or whatever. So they finally just like stopped. They just like disbanded it right in 2022. Yeah. So I was there in May, the end of May, and he told me that like 2 weeks before I was there, so in mid-May of this year, that his old co-chair, her name's Carol, that Carol called him and was like, man, all this shit is so crazy. Everything's so crazy. He's like, do you think we should try to, like have a meeting or something and just feel like we're doing something, because he just feels like we should be doing something. And he was like, I'm down with that if you want to do that. So they like posted, I don't know if they put it in the paper or just on Facebook or what, but they posted, Clay County Democratic Party was having their first meeting since 2022, and it was on this Sunday at the courthouse or whatever. And he said that when he showed up, there was like 40 people there. So, that's 10 times what their turnout used to be. And he was like thrilled, like he was so, because again, in Salina, like that, that's pretty good, especially like just that amount of growth or whatever. So, I don't know if that means anything, but maybe it does. It seems more encouraging than not, I guess. So
I just keep thinking back to like the intersection between comedy and society. And I think, I think a lot of people are worried, angry, stressed. But I guess the one good thing is that comedy can sort of take people away from the direct reality sometimes. Absolutely. And sort of keep people, I guess, bounded in a sense and not too overwhelmed by the things going on. And I think comedy is a powerful thing for people to keep themselves, I guess, less stressed.
Yeah, we are definitely going to your show in Columbus. I know you're going to Indianapolis, I think, next. Is that right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
This weekend, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a great IMAX theater, and pretty much that's the only reason why I go to Indianapolis is because of their IMAX theater. Every time there's like a Nolan movie coming out, yeah, we drive the 2.5 hours. It's not too bad at all.
The club I do in Indianapolis is like downtown area, and I stay downtown too. And downtown Indianapolis is, great. I think.
Yes, it's like not bad. Yeah.
Most city, there's a good steakhouse there called, it's either St. Elmo's or St. Elmo's Fire. I always want to say St. Elmo's Fire because that's another thing, but I think the steakhouse might just be St. Elmo's, or maybe it does have fire on it. I don't know. It's one of the two, and it's great. And so, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it.
I guess the only other thing I'd add is, I think people have reason to be stressed about the things that are going on. I do have enough faith, I guess, that the positive American values will I guess, prevail. But I do think the concern is warranted. I think there's a lot of, you see all the bad things going on today, or even if you think that the values will prevail, I don't think some people on the right really should be given the benefit of the doubt. So I guess we'll see, but I believe your comedy helps people. And thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today.
Thank you so much, Trae. I appreciate it.